How a synth looks has a lot to do with how you approach it and the kind of expectations you have with it. That's why I've always tried to build my stuff as well as I can, because I think people will give it more weight if it's got a really solid look and a really sort of a quality feel to it. My approach usually is it something I want? Is it something that's missing from the modular world? Is it an improvement over existing designs? That's what I'm trying to do, just try and make something new. You can't stray too far from the framework of the modular idea, but you know, that would be my main goal, is to try and do something new. Well, I consider myself to be an electronic luthier. And I actually had a career previously where I did make guitars and stringed instruments, and I did an apprenticeship for several years in England, and I was a really proficient woodworker at one time. And this is just an extension of that. It's all about the making of a musical instrument, and to me it's no different, except it's soldering instead of sawing. I started it as a hobby, and when I got to the point where the modules were good enough to start selling, I made a website, and people started sending me emails that they'd like to buy some of my stuff, and there was never a business plan or a model in that way. You know, it was strictly a hobby. There's not enough demand to start a factory environment. We would all be out of work in a couple of weeks. There would just be not enough customers to support that style of building. I mean, unless you did it very cheaply. Then it becomes really a business. And I like the sort of artistic aspect of it as well. It's not just about the money. Obviously, I have to earn a living, but it really is a craft. It's a craft.
There's a photo of me jumping on my parents' couch with headphones on, and I think I was listening to Kraftwerk. In preteen years, I'd come across the Orb and stuff like that, and I think I'd started to hear Aphex Twin around that time. He had this myth going of having built all these magical devices, and that analog was the only way to produce good sounds, and I wanted to learn more about that. And I like that idea of build your own things, and you're really defining a sort of unique sound. It sounds kind of funny to say that like Aphex Twin influenced you to your sort of education choice, but eventually I studied electronic engineering at university. I still like that idea of melding some form of art with technology, especially for electronic music. I think that there's a really blurry boundary between the two. And so I definitely tailored my studies towards trying to get to the point where I could be developing my own stuff.
I was driving through Washington one day, and I went to this music store and started playing this Korg something or other. And I twiddled the cutoff frequency on the filter, and it went doodle-doodle-doodle-doodle-doodle. I'm like, what the hell? And I called over the guy. I said, you know, this thing is digital, eh? And it's only got like 64 steps, and I can hear them when I turn it. You know, I'm thinking, what a pile of crap, right? Because my one at home goes, you know.
David Dixon, the guy who's basically my analog guru I work with, he comes up with some amazing things. Like, I think some of the stuff that he's been producing are going to be looked at by many different formats, because he's been able to solve some problems that nobody else has been able to. Current
flows are a lot like solution flows and chemical flows in a chemical plant. The only difference is I can conceive this thing. I can go out in my garage and, you know, etch a board, drill a few holes, and with, you know, $10 worth of parts, I can have this whole little chemical plant up and running in 1 or 2 evenings.
I'm definitely not interested in being like a giant corporate structure where you lose control over people having passion for the things. I found this place called Van Vision. It was local, and showed them the project. They gave me a quote, and within a couple of weeks they had built all the modules, so I was able to ship those out.
Hanging out with Danjel and seeing how he goes about getting these modules made, sometimes I feel almost like they're made in spite of, you know, in spite of things rather than because of them. You know, it's not easy to make stuff in North America, I don't think. I think it can be quite difficult.
You know, I've developed a pretty good reputation over the years, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm taking full responsibility for what goes out. Then you've got an on and off button as well that controls the whole system, right? And the fact that they're speaking directly to me, it's all part of the PR machine. Because it's such a small scale business, I think people just like to be able to deal direct.
To me, he is one of the most forward-thinking people in the industry. You know, the touch sequencer, the CB recorder, you know, it goes on. He's just done so much cool stuff, and what a brain.
Danjel is driven. You know, in September, he quit his day job, so he does this full time. I mean, he takes risk. He takes financial risk, you know, because it takes some capital to do this, right?
Like the ones I get now are made in China, but we got a mold done. They're really inconsistent in the quality compared to that. I work pretty obsessively. I work 7 days a week, all my spare time. I've given up on doing a lot of other stuff, like I'm not producing as much music, or I like to work on visual arts and stuff like that. I'm all the time thinking about synth design.
Danjel works so hard. I mean, the guy works 14, 16 hours a day. He is always working.
If I start building something, like it could be any prototype that I've just got boards for, or a kit or whatever, I can't stop. I will go until it's done, even if that means I'm up all night. And I can't wait to plug it in. But once it's done, pretty much the first thing I'm thinking about is like, what mods can I do to this?
The breadboard stage is usually Dan and David. And then by the time it's like a workable module, then I get my hands on it and start to play with it. We were looking for sounds that were not normal, not classic, new sounds, but sounds with variation where, although the melodic structure or the rhythmic structure is simple, the timbral structure is complex and controllable. And with a modular, that's very easy to achieve.
It's really, really gratifying to get compliments back from people that they love your gear and they use it all the time and they've made cool sounds. I feel like I put my heart into a lot of these things. Like I really want to make good stuff that people embrace and use for creative purposes and to make something cool.